What's going on YouTube? So last year was a big year for Honda SUVs, with the majority of their lineup receiving full redesigns. And today we're sitting with the latest and most affordable one, the 2024 Honda HR-V. So is this surprisingly spacious HR-V a big crossover for a small amount of money? Let's go ahead and find out. So like all reviews, let's start off under the hood for our spec dump. So the new HR-V has a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. It's making 158 horsepower, 138 pound-feet of torque.
All models have a CVT, front-wheel drive or optional all-wheel drive, and as far as fuel economy, you're sitting at either 28 or 27 miles a gallon combined.
Now, of course, later on in this review, we're gonna go out for a drive, show you the performance out on the road, get things like our sound level reading so that we can compare to all the competition on carconfections.com. But first, let's close up the hood, take a look at what the exterior design looks like. Now, one of the reasons I called this a big crossover in the introduction is because of just how much this grew with the new generation. Mason will talk about how much longer it is, but I'm going to talk about how much wider it is. It's actually 2.6 inches wider, and it really makes this a lot more spacious vehicle on the inside, but also has more of a mature presence here on the exterior design. So you'll notice up here in the front, we have kind of a simple black grille here with the sport trim level. If you choose the EXL trim level, this is going to have a gloss black finish instead. And as we come over here to the headlights, this is one of the things I really like about the HR-V is that you don't have to spend big bucks to get premium lighting. You have full LED headlights standard on every single version. As you can see, you've got reflector LEDs through there, a daytime running light, and turn signal indicator that are also LED right through there. And overall, like I said, they look very nice. Now, if you had the previous generation of the HR-V, one of the things you'll notice about this generation is that it's a lot more of a traditional SUV shape.
Yeah, and I think it does have a pretty mature look for a vehicle in this segment. Now, one of the favorite elements that I have about this vehicle are the taillights, because Honda's really done a lot of premium lighting. And let's see if all three elements are LED. So we do have an LED brake light portion, an LED reverse light, and LED turn signal indicator. Certainly something you wouldn't expect to see, all three elements as LED on a vehicle in this price point, so definitely very impressed with the lighting that they've done with this HR-V. Dropping down, we do have blacked out sport branding here on the right side, which I do think gives it a nice look. And for the sport model, we're going to have the most aggressive diffuser area, including an exposed exhaust outlet here on the right side.
Now moving on to the wheels, the HR-V does come with 17-inch alloys as standard equipment. It's actually the sport trim level though that has the largest wheels of the lineup. These are 18-inch alloys, and as you can see, we have a nice gloss black finish. The EXL comes with 17-inch alloys, just like the base model. And then as we come up here to the mirrors, nice gloss black finish, which matches with those wheels for the sport trim level. Sport is also the trim level that adds heating as well as blind spot monitoring.
Now, like Drew said at the beginning, this HR-V is one of the biggest options in the entire segment. And as far as the overall length, it's 179.8 inches long, which honestly is just about as long as a lot of the rivals in the segment above. So certainly a very big offering. We'll talk about the space once we get inside the cabin. And another important thing that I want to talk about here is your safety systems for the Honda HR-V. You're getting all 4 active safety features as standard equipment on this model, which is certainly good for an affordable vehicle. And judging by how I see you drivers drive out on the roads, we need as many safety systems as possible. But guys, that's it for the exterior design. Let's check out the inside. But before, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
Now let's go ahead and move on to the interior. The sport trim does add some useful features. One of those useful features is the smart entry system. This is going to get you this key fob. It's also going to get you remote start built into the key fob, so you can just walk up to the door here, grab behind the handle, and hop straight inside the vehicle. Now, go ahead and take a look inside at the interior. Of course, this was just fully redesigned last year, so we're not going to see any big design changes going on inside the cabin. But I do want to start off by talking about interior material and color choices. So the base trim level as well as this sport trim level are going to come with cloth seating. Here on the sport, we're going to be limited to just black, but we do have the color contrast orange stitching that runs all throughout. And the seats themselves kind of have this speckled look to them as well as a tiled texture that runs all throughout. So they're pretty premium looking and it feels nice to the touch. Now, if you want leather, you will have to choose that top-end EXL. Also, if you want power seats, you're going to have to choose that top-end EXL because this is going to have a manual seat. But let's go ahead and get inside. When you close the door, you do get a little animation up there in the gauge cluster. And let's talk about the rest of the cabin materials. Now, one of the nice things is that even though this is the mid-trim level, you still have a lot of the same materials from the loaded model. So over here on the armrest, we have the full leatherette covering with the color contrast stitching. The middle section will be hard, but the top part is soft touch. As we move to the upper dash, all of this is a nice soft touch plastic. And this lower area is going to be a full leatherette covering. You've got that single vent effect, which looks quite nice and matches with other Hondas in the lineup. And then down here along our console, surprisingly, we actually have a full leatherette covering for our knees to rest against. Very premium for this segment, and overall looks quite nice. Let's go ahead and fire it up with the push button start. Now I switched into a first-person perspective as always so that we can actually take a closer, more intimate look at the details. The first place we're going to stop is the gauge cluster arrangement. This is the same gauge cluster you've seen in a lot of Honda products. It's partially digital, partially analog, so it's a little hard to see at first, but this side is analog. This side is a reconfigurable 7-inch display, and it's going to be this way on every single trim level of the HRV. As we pull back to the steering wheel, nice design to this. Leather wrapped, as long as you get at least the sport trim level with the gloss black accents. Steering wheel itself is going to be manual tilt and telescoping. Heating is not available on the American HRV. But let's go over here and check out the interior storage because we talked about this being big on the inside, and this is one of those places that really demonstrates this. So we have a very cool console arrangement. First of all, though, let's open up the main center console and take a look inside. We have a ton of space. As a matter of fact, we have more than our dozen donuts worth here. We can fit 16 donuts inside of this center console, guys, so absolutely enormous. This passes the donut test with flying colors for sure. Now, you'll notice we have this cool floating area. You can stick, cell phones, small objects right through there. You've got a nice USB port on both sides for the driver and passenger. And then you still got your 2 cup holders and another large storage bin up in the front with another USB port. So a very versatile amount of space, especially when you consider this is technically the subcompact segment. Now, taking a look at our shifter, nice traditional style. Of course, you just pull back to D for drive. You do have a sport mode as well. R is for reverse, and when you go into reverse, you'll find a backup camera with active trajectory on all models. Parking sensors will be on the fully loaded EXL. Back behind that, you also have your electronic parking brake with your brake hold and your drive mode controller. Now heading up to our climate controls, single zone automatic climate is going to be standard equipment. You do have dual zone automatic if you choose the EXL trim level. Nice high quality knobs, which I really appreciate. We're also going to have 3-stage heated seats starting here on the sport grade. And before we get into the infotainment system, let's go ahead and turn the Etch-a-Sketch like knobs here and test out the audio system. So there's 3 different versions, 4 speakers, 6 speakers, and 8 speakers as you move through the trim levels. This is the middle, so that obviously is going to give us 6 speakers, and we'll take a sample. I'm honestly kind of surprised at just how good this sound system is. It really fills up the cabin quite nicely. Obviously, it's not a branded sound system, but for this price point, it's pretty impressive. Now, let's go ahead and address the infotainment system situation here. You're probably noticing that we have a pretty small display. That's because the base LX as well as the Sport are going to come with a 7-inch display. This doesn't really have the Honda Link software on it, so you'll navigate through this system using the shortcut buttons down here at the bottom. Now if you pick the EXL, that's going to give you a larger 9-inch display. When you get that, you're going to get the Honda Link system, so you have all your apps where you can scroll through. You also have some special features, which will be wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. You can use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in these smaller displays, but you will have to connect them via a USB. Taking a look up top, we've got a manual dimming mirror. It's auto dimming on the EXL. And you would also have a sunroof if you went for the EXL.
Now, like we said throughout this review, this is a big option for the segment. And when it comes to the rear legroom, that is going to continue. We're sitting at 37.7 inches of legroom, 38 inches of headroom. Those are very big numbers for the segment. That's going to be more than Corolla Cross, as well as a lot of the main competition. So certainly a big option when you choose this HRV. Now, this seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8". I'm 5'9", and we do have our ruler here with us, and we're sitting at about 8 inches of knee space, so certainly very good. Also, my feet can slide up underneath the seat. And one other thing that I will point out is that these seats are a little firm, but it's not really uncommon for this segment to have firm seats. Now, here in the center, we're going to be lacking when it comes to features. So we do have just a hole here, no USB ports on this trim level. You're also not going to get a center armrest. And then turning to your door trim, this is all going to be hard touch back here, besides for the armrest portion, which is wrapped in a nice leatherette with stitching details. And then we do have some bottle storage down in the very bottom, but don't expect a lot of features in the HRV's rear seat. Some of the competitors do definitely give you a lot more features. One thing I do like, though, is that we have touch capacitive LED lighting here in the back, which gives it a little bit more of a premium feel. Now, walking up to the tailgate in the HRV, we do have a manually opening one across all trim levels of this model. And then as far as the space is concerned in the cargo area, we're sitting at about 24 cubic feet behind the second row seats. And as a maximum, we are sitting at 55 cubic feet if I reach up here and fold those seats down. That is going to be a very good space figure for this segment of vehicle. Once again, it's going to best the vast majority of the segment, which certainly is a big benefit when you're buying a small SUV like this. You want it to have a lot of space. Now that we have the seat folded down, I did bring my tape measure so we can measure from the driver's seat to the rear of the cargo area, sitting at a nice 69 inches of length when it comes to the cargo area. And let's see how wide it is for the cargo opening. If I can get my ruler to behave with me here. We're sitting at 41 inches wide for the opening. We do have LED lighting once again here in the cargo area, so they've really spent a lot of money on the lighting on this HRV. And then if we lift up the cargo floor, we have a little bit of storage and then a spare tire integrated up underneath of that. Well, guys, here we are in the 2024 Honda HRV, and in this test drive, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things on the screen right now, including getting that sound level reading that we promised earlier, so we can see how quiet this HRV is. But first, let's go ahead and see how powerful it is when you accelerate.
All right, so we're accelerating a little bit. Of course, we are climbing a hill here, but speed is not the priority when it comes to the HRV. We might as well go ahead and say that right from the start. You heard the power figures at the beginning. 158 horsepower, 138 pound-feet of torque, which actually is decent for the segment, but we've been talking about it throughout this whole review. This is pretty big for the segment. It has a lot more space than a lot of the competition. Yeah. And because of that, it does carry more weight, which I think kind of cancels out the extra power.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Now I'll go ahead and talk about the other aspect of the powertrain, that is the continuously variable transmission. This is, kind of your usual fare for this segment, you could say. Nothing too special about it. It is responsive, though. You don't have to wait for it to, match with the engine or anything like that. It's nice and responsive. Also, if you really kind of go hard at it, you can get some shift simulations under certain circumstances.
Yeah, and then as far as how it's routed to the ground, front-wheel drive is your standard option. You do have optional all-wheel drive as well. On today's example, we actually do have the front-wheel drive version, so you can get that on all the trim levels.
Which will save you a little bit of money.
Yeah, for sure. If you live in a moderate climate, you might not want the all-wheel drive system. Now, I might as well also go ahead and talk about your fuel economy for this Honda HR-V. Like I said at the spec dump, you're either sitting at 27 or 28 miles a gallon combined, depending on if you choose front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And it's worth noting the fuel economy is not great for this segment of vehicle. It's actually reduced from the previous generation model, and I think that has a lot to do with, like what Drew said, this vehicle is a lot bigger than what it used to be, so it is a lot for this engine to be kind of hauling around, so I think your fuel economy kind of reflects that. One thing I also think is interesting is that there is no HR-V hybrid at this time, so this is the only engine option you're going to get on this model.
And if you're tuning in from overseas, I do want to point out that our HR-V is not the same as the HR-V you guys have over in Europe, for example. You guys have a totally different thing. So if you're wondering why we said there's no hybrid, for example, that would be why. This is actually a totally different vehicle. I believe it's sold under a different name in Europe as well.
And let's go ahead and get into our airball and slam dunk today. Drew, do you want to kick us off with the slam dunk?
Yeah, the slam dunk, I think, is obviously what this video has been themed about, is talking about the space you get for the price. So you have a lot of space for a more affordable price point, and really compared to a lot of the competition, this is going to be the biggest thing you can get.
Yeah, and then as far as our airball is concerned, I'm not going to really reiterate too much, but we do definitely think that they should have a hybrid here for the US version. A hybrid with more power, I think, would certainly be welcome to have a little bit more horsepower with this, and I think better fuel economy would also be very welcome in this HR-V. Honestly, I have to check on those numbers, but I believe the CR-V gets better fuel economy than the HR-V, which is a interesting thing for the Honda lineup. All right, let's also talk about the ride quality for this Honda HR-V. The ride quality for this model is pretty good for this segment of vehicle. When you hit a bump, it does a decent job of soaking it up and making sure not a lot of intrusion comes into the cabin. We do have the largest wheels in the HR-V lineup here with the Sport model, and I have to say, not bad ride quality whatsoever, so don't be worried if you choose the Sport model that it's going to have bad ride quality. I will say, though, that some of the other rivals in the segment have a slightly more premium ride quality, and you can also get nicer seats in some of the rivals. But we're heading up to 55 miles an hour. Once we get there, I'll go ahead and start our sound level reader. .59 decibels even is where we've been sitting at for our sound level reading. And you know what I'm going to go ahead and go to do is I'm going to go to our website, carconfections.com, because on there we've sampled out a lot of vehicles in this very competitive segment, and we can compare this HR-V to those rivals. And 59 decibels does place it on the louder end of the segment when it comes to the sound level reading. It is going to be a little bit less than the 2023 model that we tested out last year, but one of the things about this is that you might be able to get a better or quieter cabin if you choose the fully loaded EX-L trim level. This is just the Sport version of the HR-V.
And as we stop here at this red light, I do want to mention that this does not have auto start stop at all. So if you're one of those people that really dislike that or dislike having to turn it off each time, unlike the CR-V, no auto start stop.
Yeah, and lastly, as far as your warranty is concerned, you do have a 3-year, 36,000 mile basic warranty, 5-year, 60 powertrain, and Honda does 2 years of complimentary maintenance. And let's talk pricing for this 2024 Honda HR-V. Now, you saw that they didn't really change much for this model year for the HR-V, and the prices aren't going to change much as you would expect then. It's about $1,000 on all trim levels increase this year. So we're starting at $24,100 for the LX trim level. The Sport's going to start at $26,200, and then your EXL model's $28,200. Now this one as equipped, we're $26,200 plus the optional paint color. Destination charge is $13,25, so we're sitting at a touch under $28,000 as equipped. And the next step that I'm going to do if I'm a smart shopper is I'm going to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. On there, we have a tool that will connect you with local dealerships in your area to get you the best price, as well as access to invoice pricing. If you'd like to take advantage of that, a link is provided in the video description. Well guys, that's it for our in-depth review of the 2024 Honda HR-V Sport. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, we would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you help us to make more car reviews like this, as well as some of our other video formats like comparisons and first look reviews. If you're already a fan and loyal subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support, because you do make this all possible. If you haven't had the chance to check us out on TikTok and Instagram as well, we would really appreciate a follow there. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.